Turns out histamine is a neurotransmitter. Who knew? But that may explain why my mental health was so shaken up by Claratyne and antihistamine. Also, I've discovered that alfalfa has a whole bunch of other stuff going on with it that I didn't realize that may have exacerbated what I went through. So we'll talk about some of that stuff, and then I'll tell you about how I've been going through the week. I guess the important stuff, yeah, histamine is a neurotransmitter. It's also involved in inflammation, immune response, a whole bunch of stuff. I should have opened the Wikipedia page, but you can go have a look at that. Yeah, and so, I've got a bunch of notes. They're really disjointed, so I'll do my best. But yeah, no, so, histamine's involved in inflammatory response. Here's one thing. There's some studies that suggest a link between certain types of depression and inflammation, so there's that there. But then finding out that histamine itself is a neurotransmitter, I'm just blown away by that. The fact that you can buy this just in a chemist over the counter, there's no controls on it. They had them in bulk in 60 tablets. You can just buy it, and it can fuck with your head if you're the wrong type of person. I just find that's mind-blowing. But when I look at stuff like Claratyne, it's loratadine is the active ingredient, right? It's older than me, so it was developed a long time ago, presumably before mental health had so much attention, presumably back when the stigma was let's not talk about depression kind of stuff. So when they were testing it, I imagine that, a few people reported things like fatigue, which is listed in there. Or, if they said they were feeling a bit down, they just listed it as fatigue, even though it might actually have been depression in some people. Also, people react differently. So whether or not they saw the effect, or they're like, well, some people were fine and some people weren't. Also, with histamine, right? So if you have histamine levels that are too high, you can feel depressed, and if they're too low, you can feel depressed. And so what happened to me, I think, is the antihistamine wiped out some of my histamines, my level got too low, and then I got depressed. But in people who have high levels of histamine, if you take an antihistamine, it might actually help your depression. And I've got a friend who was saying his friend always has a hard come down when they stop taking antihistamines. And so I suspect with that person, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, medical person of any kind, so this is all speculation, but I wonder if that person has naturally high levels of histamine that make them depressed, and so when they take antihistamines, they feel better. Possibly. It's an interesting thing to think about, and people react differently. Also, with histamine, right? So, atypical antipsychotics increase histamine for schizophrenics who seem to have an imbalance. That is a pretty big deal if antipsychotics, atypical, so they're not the standard antipsychotic medications, but if there's some out there that are actually designed to increase histamine so that schizophrenics can get by, I think that's huge. Why are we not talking about histamine as a neurotransmitter? Last time I was depressed, had biological depression, it was really, really bad. All we ever talked about with medications was serotonin and dopamine and stuff. No one even mentioned histamine. It's taken me this long to find out that histamine is a neurotransmitter as well. Why are we not talking about the interaction? There could be so many people out there who have unbalanced histamine, and maybe that's why they feel shit. And we're just not talking about this. We're just selling antihistamines like candy. My mind is another thing with histamines, there was something about autism. Autism, a lot of them have histamine sensitivity. I think that means they prefer a lower level of histamine. I don't know, if they get too much, then it messes things up. But I didn't look into that one very closely, so if someone wants to do that research and find out what the exact link is. But, things as different as schizophrenia, autism, depression, all of these things being affected by histamines, I'm just why are we not talking about this as a culture? And, another friend, so Nervous Neuron, who is a neuroscientist and knows a lot more about this stuff than me, pointed out that often research and actual practice, they can be a bit disconnected from each other. So yes, there is research showing that some of these things have links, but the people on the front lines don't necessarily know. And I think that's really frustrating. Generally, things seem to be okay, but with histamines, I feel like there's this huge gap and we're just not talking about it. I don't know. And that was the other thing is Nervous Neuron found an article that was sort of saying, seemed to be saying that a lot of people who have depression also have hay fever, and that's an interesting thing. I think that's probably relevant to the people who have too much histamine, and that's making them depressed, like the opposite problem of what I seemingly have. Yeah, I just think this stuff is incredibly fascinating and mildly disturbing. So I'm going to see my doctor tomorrow to check up because she still thinks I'm depressed as far as she knows. And I'll be like, hey, I'm actually fine. It was the Claratyne that made me, horribly depressed and brain fogged and like just non-functional. And since I stopped taking it, I'm fine. So let's talk about histamines. And I wonder with my last depression, like, what if we'd known this stuff? What if that was my problem? What if that was the biological issue or, one of the key issues? It's probably a combination of things, but what if that was something that we just completely ignored, and if I'd done something to get my histamine levels back in balance, would I have recovered faster? I don't know. And I wonder if I stopped trying medications too early, because I think I got up to I tried an ADHD drug. I had to get government approval to use it for depression instead, and it just made me queasy. The next one after that I was going to try was an antipsychotic. Maybe not an atypical antipsychotic, so maybe not one that influences histamine, but I just wonder, like, what if I had taken the antipsychotic? Maybe it would have done something for my histamine levels. Maybe it would have helped. Just by then I'd had so many side effects. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I had to stop working because I was just constantly having side effects to everything we tried. God, that was a frustrating time in my life. But maybe I stopped one medication too early. I guess we'll never know until, like, maybe one day I will get depressed again. I hope not. I hope I've, like, gotten to a point of stability in my life, especially being in my 30s. Apparently, like, that your brain does kind of stabilize for a bit there, and it's more like my 40s and 50s that I'm gonna have to worry about. But hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah, no, I just wonder, like, what if we had tried something? Would I have been depressed for less time? And then another thing, I've got a friend who's a vet, and she was reading about antihistamines and noticed that fluoxetine was on the list of antihistamines. Now, fluoxetine is an antidepressant, at least in humans, and I mean, I'm not sure what context she was looking up antihistamines, but yeah, fluoxetine was on the list, and she was surprised that that was on there. Yeah, so like some antidepressants maybe do have a histamine effect. I can't remember if I tried fluoxetine. Is that Prozac? I can't remember the chemical names versus the brand names. But yeah, no, I tried a bunch. They most of the antidepressants work on stuff like serotonin and nor something and dopamine and whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of them muck around with histamines as well. Also, I think she was the one. I don't know. I've got a friend who was going through a lot of depression, but it got worse for a while, and then it started to get better, and they thought that it was just like because, they'd had a break and maybe they've recharged a bit. But then I was posting on Facebook about Claratyne messing with my mood, and this friend realized that they had gotten better after stopping Zyrtec. And yeah, that's how it, like, having these conversations on Facebook with some of my friends and people who've been through similar things, and we're all like, holy crap, it's histamines, antihistamines, and all that kind of stuff. Like, wow. So there is something to it. I don't know how strong it is, and obviously there's different kinds of depression. We all have different biology and different reactions. But yeah, I'm just like, holy crap, this is a bigger thing than we realized. And it's like, the medical psychiatric community seems to have really dropped the ball in terms of at least patient focused practice. Maybe the research side is doing better, I don't know, but it's clearly not filtering through properly, and clearly no one's done a review on things like loratadine to figure out if there is something going on. And I just worry, like, what if there are people who are taking antihistamines and they're depressed and they don't realize that that medication could be what's causing it? I don't know. Anyway, so I think that's my general ramble about Yeah, histamines. I mean, there's also the inflammation thing, that could be related, in the forms of depression that do have an inflammation link. That could be another interesting thing, but really, I think the histamine as a neurotransmitter is the one that blows me away the most. So, as I said previously, and in that live stream I did, after I stopped taking the antihistamine, my mood came back, my energy levels came back, and I was fine. But the next thing to talk about is alfalfa. I mean, alfalfa smells like childhood. I think I must have had it when I was a kid a lot, and so when we got it again, I got a little bit too excited. And Friday night, I had a lot of veggies in general, but also with a lot of alfalfa. And then the next day, I was feeling kind of dizzy and low energy. No mood problems though. And so I've been looking up alfalfa, and it turns out, I mean, it's full of vitamins and stuff, so yay that. But there's a lot of things you can't take it with, like you can't take it with warfarin, which I think is, I think it stops excess blood clotting. I don't know. It's something to do with blood clotting. Alfalfa has a lot of vitamin K, can interfere with that drug, and so, you absolutely shouldn't have alfalfa if you're on this certain drug from the looks of things. But it also, alfalfa increases an immune response. So if you are on, immune suppressing medication, it can mess with that. There's one case where they think it might have interfered with someone who had a kidney transplant and caused rejection of the kidney, which I'm like, I mean, it's just one case, so it's not really a confirmed thing, but that's a little bit scary, and it's listed in a few places, so maybe it's a real thing. It can also lower blood sugar levels, so there's a caution for people with diabetes to be careful about that. And then there's also a thing about well, okay, no, the things that aren't confirmed. It might be an antihistamine, it might be an anti-inflammatory. So as we mentioned, those things could affect brains, but that's not been confirmed by anyone. Only health nut news sites think that. So it's not something that's been confirmed by science. But the thing that really caught my interest is that alfalfa has chemicals in it that act like estrogen, and I'm on the pill. And I mean, the main warning they have is that if you have a lot of alfalfa and you're on the pill, it may affect its contraceptive effectiveness. Now, that's not a problem for me because, I'm not dating, I'm not sleeping around, I'm not worried about getting pregnant. I take the pill officially for acne, but actually for period pain, which I don't get anymore, so yay me. But in the past, I think there was a video ages ago where I complained about having messed up my hormones or something. Because I think I forgot to take it 2 days, and then I tried to catch up and didn't manage it properly. So yeah, my hormones were probably all out of whack, and I did not feel good. And I wonder if eating too much alfalfa might have shifted my hormone balance out of whack again. Because yeah, I was feeling a bit dizzy and a bit low energy. And I also wonder, so the same time I was having Claratyne, I also had alfalfa. That was the only thing that was different. Oh my god, people are walking around. Distracting. So I wonder if having alfalfa at the same time as Claratyne might have made it worse than it could have been. I definitely think the Claratyne did most of it. But yeah, I just wonder if that was an exacerbating factor. I'll ask my doctor what she thinks, but all this stuff is a bit very speculative. But yeah, no, with alfalfa, I didn't get any mood problems. It was just the dizziness and feeling low energy. So Friday night I ate that. Saturday I felt like crap. Saturday I decided not to eat any alfalfa. Sunday I was fine. And Sunday was yesterday, so I had a small amount of alfalfa and a small amount of veggies. I was just like, yeah, let's chill out, everything in moderation, right? And today I'm fine, so yay. I didn't get much sleep, I was up quite late, because I started feeling good in the afternoon, I was feeling fine yesterday, but it was a slow start, and then I was feeling a lot better in the afternoon, so I ended up staying up way too late. Anyway, alfalfa, so there are things that it does. It's got a lot of vitamins in it, which is great, but it's also got a little bit too much of some other things, so... And I think it's a bit I've figured out that I have probably a mild lactose insensitivity, especially being half Asian and all that kind of stuff, and... I guess I tried to change my diet too much and I'm suddenly eating this other thing and my body's like, what's going on? So I think similar to lactose. I just need to be a little bit more chill out about how many veggies I introduce into my life and how much alfalfa I put on stuff. Just try to go for it straight away. It was maybe not wise. So yeah, dear oh dear, because mostly I eat carbs. Really, I love potato. I eat a lot of rice because, you know, half Asian family. Potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, sort of. Not as into bread, but I have toast every morning. And then yeah, meats. But I'm not as meat hungry as I used to be. I guess having braces, you get tired of chewing, and even though I haven't had braces for years, just my brain is like, oh no, I'm gonna have to chew that. Anyway, no, we had some red meat last night, so I'm very happy because I was like, ooh, that looks good. So yeah, no, that's a thing. And let me just see if there's anything else. I think I actually did go. I told myself, I think at the start of this video, I was like, I'll talk about histamines first, and then I'll talk about alfalfa, and then I'll talk about how I've been going through the week. But I think I already covered that while talking about the alfalfa. So yeah, no, where am I up to? Let's have a look. I think I've covered just about everything. God, it's so all over the place. And yeah, no, I think I already talked about how Claratyne, there's no official depression link, but there are other people who've reported something similar. Let me just have a look at what else. Oh yeah, so one more thing about Claratyne. I think it's virtually confirmed that it messed with my acne. You can probably see in that video where I'm first asking the question about Claratyne, and then in the live stream, I think the day after, I had some acne spots. It's a bit hard to see in the lighting, and like there's not really much left. But yeah, no. Loratadine or antihistamines can affect the oil in your skin, and if your skin's too oily or if your skin's too dry, both of them can cause acne in using different mechanisms. So yeah, while I was on the Claratyne, I actually did get a lot of acne starting to pop up, and I was like, oh boy, here we go with an outbreak. And especially the one on this side was really bad, and I could actually feel this huge area underneath that was kind of like getting something in there, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be one of those slow grinding pimples that just goes on for like 1 to 2 weeks, and it's going to be painful and horrible. So I was putting on the Benzac, which I usually use. You know, like when I was younger, I had to go through a bigger acne regime because I had a real problem then. But these days, all I need is a bit of Benzac. Maybe face moisturizer because you don't want your face to get too dry, because then your skin tries to overcompensate by producing too much oil, and that's another path to, you know, all these ways you can get acne. But yeah, no, I put on the Benzac. And then when I stopped taking Claratyne, this one especially that seemed like it was going to go forever, just disappeared. I didn't even have to it didn't form into a pimple, you know, like I expected it to. It just sort of died back down, and I'm like, that's unusual, and I'm glad that all these pimples are gone. I had some developing, very small, developing along my lip that I could tell were going to be painful, and they disappeared too. They never properly formed into pimples. I had one here and here that did form into pimples, and they disappeared and didn't develop further. I was just like, yeah, wow. So that's an interesting thing that I'm gonna have to tell my doctor is, by the way, Claratyne also gave me pimples. And I don't know what the mechanism is for that. I mean, I guess because I'm on the pill for acne, like, is the official thing. Like, if it was hormones that was causing my pimples, you'd think after eating all that alfalfa and getting my hormones out of balance that I would get pimples, but I didn't. So I think, yeah, it's the bloody Claratyne that did it. Let me just check Facebook in case there's any more notes that I've got here. But no, I think that's what's going on. Yeah, I did have some questions about coincidence, you know, especially with the alfalfa. Like, the Claratyne was a really obvious effect on me, but the alfalfa is a little bit more of a subtle thing, and I'm like, maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Maybe it's like placebo, or nocebo is, I think, the opposite, like, as a negative response. You know, that sort of, maybe I was just expecting something to happen, because even when you're expecting placebo might happen, it still happens to you. It's like weird psychological stuff. But yeah, I don't know. The alfalfa is a harder one for me to figure out, but the Claratyne was definitely a thing that happened. Um, I also wondered if, my crappy sleep problems were a factor, because here in Australia we've just finished up winter. We've now got increasing spring weather. It's getting warmer, and so when I've go to bed, I have too many blankets, and I've had to sort of stop sleeping with the hunten as the top layer. So because I was overheating a bit, and I wondered if some of my energy messing up was to do with that. I gotta say, like last night, I slept pretty well. I guess because I got rid of that extra layer, I didn't get all sweaty, but also I went to bed really late and I was feeling good when I went to bed, so I just was like completely out. Um, yeah, so it's hard to know how some things like that play into it, placebo effects, sleeping issues. Um, yeah, I think that might be covering just about everything that I had in my head. So, yeah, what we've learned, histamine is a neurotransmitter, and for some reason no one talks about that. Like, I've never seen those depression websites mention histamine or antihistamines as like a factor, and I'm just like, wow, I gotta talk to my doctor about this, find out something. Um, I mean, if you were trying to raise awareness for histamine, I don't know what you could do. But oh my god, Hopi, you're distracting. So this is the problem with trying to film at home during a pandemic with everyone around. But anyway, no. I don't know how you would get the word out about like maybe we should look at histamine more. But maybe if I talk to my doctor, I mean, doctors talk to each other. They've also been to uni. Maybe they have connections with professors or important people who might be able to be like, hey, maybe we should get a PhD student on this. I don't know. I mean, if I was really into it, I could go to like some, God help me, TV, what do you call them, current affairs program, and be like, this happened to me and no one's paying attention and rah rah rah. But I don't think I want to be that kind of nutcase. Um, yeah, histamine can do this, and it does so many things. Like it's not just in your brain chemicals. Like I've got a friend who mentioned she can't take it because I think she's pregnant, and there's histamine stuff going on in your uterus, and I guess she must have had a bad reaction. I don't know how it all interplays, but like histamine is in lots of parts of your body. 3 different types of histamine are in your brain out of possible 4 that in total that I could find out about. It's not just about allergies and sneezing. It does so much more in our bodies, and you can just buy it over the counter and no one asks questions. And that friend who was going through that depressed patch and noticed, after I said it, realized that they had improved after stopping taking Zyrtec. That friend was really frustrated because anytime they've talked to a doctor or a pharmacist and they've said, what other drugs are you on, they've never said, gee, maybe the antihistamine's something that's interacting. Like, none of them figured out. And also when my mum went to the chemist to get this sample pack, which I haven't used yet, I'm nervous. Maybe we'll talk about that in just a second. When my mum went to the pharmacist to ask about alternatives to antihistamines in terms of hay fever management, Mama asked whether or not it's possible, like whether or not the pharmacist was aware of Claratyne doing that to people, making people depressed. And from what Mum said, all the pharmacist could say was, well, it's not really a thing that anyone knows about, but it's a chemical, so maybe. I don't like that explanation. Ooh, it's a chemical, maybe it could do anything. I like my explanation better. It's a fucking neurotransmitter. It's involved in anti-inflammatory whatever. Anyway, no, quickly before we finish, this stuff, right? It's like sinus and allergy relief. It's, what do you call it? Nasal irrigation, okay? When my doctor was mentioning, the stuff that goes up your nose for hay fever, I thought she just meant the spray stuff, because I've tried that stuff before and it's unpleasant, but it's doable. This stuff, shall I read the basic instructions? Because it's got, more full-on instructions in here. But it's like, I mean, you gotta wash the whole thing before you even use it. But then you add 200 mils of lukewarm pre-boiled water to the bottle. Like boiled but lukewarm, okay. Add contents of one flow sachet to the flow bottle. Shake the bottle with the cap and close the bottle with the cap and shake until the powder is dissolved. Lean over basin and insert cap nozzle into nostril. While breathing through your mouth, gently squeeze flow bottle until solution starts to drain from the other nostril. And then you have to do the opposite way. I'm just like, all I wanted to do was spray some saline up my nose and hopefully clear some stuff out. I didn't want to create a water fountain from one nostril into the other. And then when you read this one, bloody hell, when you read this one, they're like, oh, by the way, it might also come out your mouth. And I'm like gagging internally already. I'm just like, oh my god. So first of all, that's a bit much for me. I'm not a fan of, I mean, I've had 2 COVID tests, and having stuff poked up your nose that far was not a fun experience, and like the back of your throat as well. Oh my god. But yeah, this one's like, yeah, just shove a bunch of liquid up your nose until it comes up out the other nostril, or maybe out your mouth. Fucking gross. Like, do I want my snot coming out my mouth? But then, like, okay, maybe that'll work for some people. Apparently it's helpful for like nasal surgery as well, like, you know, post-surgery care, which I have not had. This all feels very extreme. You know, like, I've got hay fever, but I don't know that I want to be squirting stuff. They say to do this twice a day. You know, go through all this shenanigans of mixing a bunch of liquid and then shoving it up both nostrils until it comes out. Oh my god. But then after that, they're like cleaning after use. Do you want to hear the fucking cleaning instructions? Wash all components with warm soapy water and rinse well. Dry with a clean paper towel. Firmly wipe all components using either a large alcohol swab or a clean paper towel which has been well moistened with isopropyl alcohol to help remove unwanted bacteria. Be sure to wipe down the thread on the bottle neck and inside of the cap. Allow about 5 minutes for the alcohol to dry. Reassemble the flow bottle and store in the refrigerator until next needed. Before next use, rinse the bottle with previously boiled water to remove any residues from the ice. Oh my god, the fucking alcohol thing. I'm just like, who can be bothered to do all this twice a day and take up space in their fridge for an empty bottle? I'm just like... But we got it for free, so I'll try it later today so I can go to my doctor tomorrow and be like, hey, you know that nasal irrigation stuff? Can I just get like the spray version? You know, the one where you just do a little bit of stuff comes out your nose, you blow your nose, you're done. And then maybe after you've done the saline, you can use the corticosteroid or whatever. I don't want to be wasting my time with this. I feel like this is so much effort, I might as well just live with blowing my nose every now and then. Like, you know, I've got hay fever, it's frustrating, but it's not that bad that I feel like I need to create a fountain in my nose every fucking day, twice a day, and clean it with alcohol and all this kind of stuff. Oh my god. Anyway, so that's that. Corticosteroids, I don't think I've ever had a bad reaction to. I haven't really shoved it up my nose, but like, you know, in terms of skin corticosteroids, I think I had a thing here once that needed it. Yeah, no, never had a bad reaction, so maybe it'll be fine. Yeah. That's my life. That's my life with histamines, hay fever, and fucking alfalfa. And, yeah. Maybe, hopefully after this we move on and I talk about some other topics, because boy do I have a lot of ideas. Yeah, no, insert all the YouTube things, because I don't give a crap and I can't be bothered. Have a nice day.